about this, we're going to overlay that with the next item, which is staffing, which, you know, there's a big budget discussion this year and just staffing needs, so Kim?
Yes, so you could see that we currently have 23 unfilled positions. 5 are certified teachers. They are all being filled by subs, so we have teachers, even though they're not full-time, they are subs, so they are in there. We have 2 openings for our permanent subs, but both positions are in process of being filled. Our teacher assistants, we are close to 10 and a half. We're down assistants and one-to-ones. There is a plan for most of these to be filled in the next couple of weeks. We're working with the contractual agencies. It's a process working with the contractual agencies. They don't roll over as quickly as we'd like them to, but there is a plan for all 10 of these positions to be filled by the end of this month. We still can't seem to get our job coaches in there, so we're working on that, and then a couple other persons that we are making accommodations for as we move forward. We're taking a look at the the transportation position a little bit more closely to see what we could do with that. So that's where we are as of currently.
So Kim, with both staffing and enrollment, one of the questions that we had asked before you were on board was the number of staff members compared to the number of students, just talking budget, and it looked very large in terms of the number of staff that we were actually employing and the number of students that were enrolled. And one of the comments was made, well, it's not just the students that you see on here, it's all the other students that SACSA is serving, whether that's itinerant services or what the, any sense, can we get that number as well? Because I think that helps us understand and it maybe can alleviate some concern in terms of, you know, the number of staff we're employing versus the number of students that are enrolled.
Other students served, absolutely.
Right, I think that can be helpful for us, especially around budget conversations. And then in terms of the staffing update and the unfilled position, one of the things in terms of bringing the budget into order, we had talked about how not every position was filled last year, and we're moving forward kind of with that same level of staffing. So when you say adding contractual staff just for the budget, is that in line with the number of people that we employed last year? So you're not talking about going above that, you're just simply talking about when we look at last year compared to this year, the staffing numbers align and any missing, that's what we're filling with contractual. So budget-wise, we can kind of expect the same number as last year.
Yes.
Am I making sense?
Yes, you're making total sense. So I will add the number of students served outside of our programs, those mostly for our OTs and PTs, some speech services. So that would be an easy number to add on our enrollment. And then as far as the staffing, what is here has been budgeted for. So we're not anticipating going over or under if we don't fill all these positions, but we are on track with our budget.
Thank you.
I worry about that being a slippery slope because a lot of what I saw in the personnel report was a lot of contract agency people, especially for TA pieces. And so when we talk about what's on budget and things like that and how we want to increase, yeah, it's in the staffing plan in terms of numbers, but there's a huge difference between a SAS enrollment person and a contract person.
And I agree, but I think that's accounted for here. if I'm not
We
mistaken.
did make accounts for that. We may be
accounted
off
for.
1 or 2,
Made
but
the
it won't be
assumption, yeah.
substantial.
So the way I would put it too is if we have accounted for a agency-filled position that turns out to be our own staff member, that is not only our own staff member, which is awesome, but frankly costs less because we're not paying the overhead of an agency, then that's net in our favor, right? So just be it with the other.
Door swings both ways.
It works both ways, but what I'm saying is on this report, you're seeing it, what's on here is budget, right? I just want to make sure.
Yeah, we accounted for many of our assistant positions and a lot of positions to be contractual folks. So when we were doing the budget, that was taken into consideration. Not all, but similar to the pattern that we had this year.
And for those of you a little newer, just real quick, one of the things we struggled with in the past was we actually didn't have a good handle on exactly where we are with these numbers. This has been a discussion. of our board. And while that's, not a very slippery number in our district, in our districts here at Sassett, it was a little bit more, but that's why we would keep this enrollment and this in front of you for all these reasons, okay? Just that board oversight, big picture for all the obvious things. So when we're developing that budget next year, we know what we're working on in terms of staffing. That number should not be mysterious.
You said one thing that Kim did a good job for my district, not just a small district, but we got such a detailed bill of kind of where we were and how many one-to-one aides we had. Our director reached out in a class, there were almost as many adults as there were kids, so we didn't need all of them. So she's opened up some IEPs, and I think she's reduced by 2. So I'm just sharing that with the entire board as we look at next year, we look at budgeting. That is a way to do it, just because you have more adults and you can't find aides anyway. It was a really helpful thing that Kim did. Kevin was the first one that pointed out the bill to me, but he was talking about it the last board meeting last year. We looked, and you gave us a good kind of a way to try to control our costs from our side.
That's good. That's good. We've got our eyes on it. Okay, anything else on the staffing or enrollment updates? Okay, strategic plan, Kim.
Yeah, I'm excited to share, right? We are moving forward. We have developed 6 new committees with our folks. One is our retention and recruitment. We had a great meeting last week. Some of our staff members, committees were open to all staff members that wanted to participate. So I think there's about 6 to 8 on each of the committees. The retention and recruitment group did a fantastic job of really focusing on what agencies, colleges are out there that we don't normally look at, specifically for some of our blind, teachers of the blind, teachers of the deaf, organizations and so forth. So we're moving forward on some of those ideas. Our culture committee also met. The culture committee ran into some problems because our staff satisfaction committee was so poorly completed last year that it's really hard to pull data or things from 16 teachers and so forth. So we're sending out a couple of questions this month in our newsletter. Policies and procedures. One of the things that's happening here, and our staff know about it. We have several policies and procedures. We have several different policies and procedures for the same thing, and we're missing some policies and procedures. So, and we have them kind of stored everywhere. So, policy and procedure committee is really more processes and procedures. It's not going to impact press policy, but just more of our internal ways of working with each other. We're identifying critical processes and procedures that we need. The policy committee is going to not develop them. They're going to be developed by, for example, Rachel might be putting together a process and procedure for a purchase order. We're going to run it by the policy or procedure and processes committee, make sure that it's understandable, make sure that they could, thinking from their lens that, yep, this makes sense. And then we're developing a repository site, a Google site with all new policies and procedures. Again, we have them everywhere, intranet that we just need to start new. So focusing this now on our handbooks, which need some significant work as well. So it's a great committee. They were open. They were excited. So we're moving forward with that. Communication plan has been developed. It really kind of focuses on the flow charts that I think I shared, talking about how folks communicate with each other, considering our board, our department folks, and so forth. So once that draft is more on the finalized piece, I will share that with everybody here as well. And then on a really good note, our newsletter, which Jim and Jimmy started last year, by the end of the year, we had 1 or 2 news. This year, we put the newsletter out, we had 615. So super excited. I'm super proud of our staff. We've had a lot of surveys in there as well, and we've had upward of close to 200 folks completing the survey. So I'm excited. I'm proud of my staff, and all of the survey data that we're asking for goes right back into the strategic plan. So there's a circular input and output. So it's been great. You're welcome.
All right, Dr. Vanderwood, we have the Sassett end-of-year performance reports.
Yes.
a little bit more in-depth enrollment about race, ethnicity, gender, and then some primary eligibility. My understanding is this is the format with what you were presented with last year. I followed that to keep things the same, but I also do want to hear back from everyone on what other information you want to be presented and given. On the back is really the end of the year academic progress. Our FastBridge and iReady, which are the diagnostic tools we use, our end window is tomorrow, so I did not want to pull that and present incomplete data on both of those, but next month I'll have the complete diagnostic window of those. So what's on the back is our IAR scores for ELA and math. The reason why between 2021 and 2023 we do not have approached expectations versus met expectations is because on the past reports it was not delineated all 4 categories. I wanted to flesh that out so we can really begin measuring with a little bit more detail how we're improving in terms of increasing the number of students who are approaching expectations and also meeting expectations. Something else related somewhat to the strategic plan is looking at those growth measurements, especially for our students within SACID programs. This year for IAR, I'll be looking at that to see how our students are meeting those growth measures, not just the achievement levels, especially as our students come with specialized individual education plans. I want to make sure that we're keeping our eye on the growth of those individual students and not just achievement. For the DLM test, you can also see, again, I included the at-target measurement for this year too. And we'll be looking to obviously increase the number of students that reach that at-target level. And then the PSAT and SAT from the 23-24 school year. Obviously with the switch in Illinois to now ACT, that will be those reports that I will provide.
Good summary. Thank you very much. Any questions for Lizzie? Questions, comments? You all have yours? Take that. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, we're going to move on to facility usage. Probably going to say that term if I make it.
So this is to prepare us for our conversations when we start diving into our facility studies. Rachel had put this together for us so that we have an idea of how many classrooms we are currently renting from all of you, and office space, and the cost associated with the rentals. The rentals just for the spaces in your buildings is a little over $1 million. Southeast we own, and we have a, what do we have coming up, Rachel? They're doing a,
the HVAC project.
no, are they giving us our worth? Are they doing, didn't I just see that?
Oh, you want the appraisal?
Yes.
Sorry.
So we'll have the appraisal numbers soon. And then our building lease here is close to $620,000 a year. So we're at, with taxes and so forth of our buildings over at Southeast, close to probably $2 million a year in rental and taxes. So this is just to kind of set the stage as we move forward and we look at, what kind of facilities do we want and do we need. I think it was important for us to know where we currently are, so that when we have our facility committee meeting, we will have a little wider scope of numbers.
Can I ask a clarification?
Sure.
What taxes?
The property taxes over at Southeast.
No.
No, what taxes? For here, sorry, my apologies.
Part of the lease agreement is that we have to pay the base year taxes of $20,000 a year.
Sorry.
Yeah, okay, that's what I was going to say. This has got to be the lease agreement, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's okay, because I think we're all probably scratching our heads a little bit.
Yeah.
So just want to share for everybody, Kim and I have talked, we know we got some big facility planning to do, okay? It's going to be a big, big task of our board for this coming year, for sure. And so one of the things Kim and I talked about was just getting, what do we have right now? Where are we as an organization? Besides that map, for people that haven't looked, the three locations, that's us, those 3 islands, a big one, a medium-sized one, and a little one, spread around the DuPage County, and a lot of space in between. But what do we have? What is it? What does it cost? So this is that summary, okay? So I think it's really important for us as a board, when we start talking about what we have and what's in place, to know what we have and right now. So interesting. So on the lease, as this is news to me, lease that we have here in this building, we pay the taxes. Okay. Well, there you go. So a lot here in front of us, but are there any questions about this? I'm sorry, Kim, I didn't mean to, anything else you want to add or?
It's Bill 203's tax
Right, so it's a good thing.
It's FYI's neighbor Bill 203.
I think.
If we charge that back on their building, I don't know.
There's a lot of hidden costs in this as well. Right, every time that we move a classroom or there's construction going on in a building where we need to move, we have to hire people to do that. We have one maintenance person on staff. Sometimes we have to hire movers. And that's part of being a co-op. Totally get that. We all know that. But there's a lot of hidden costs with the moves and with different, changing our locations. It wears on the staff that have to pack up their rooms and unpack their rooms. Following our contractual language in there as well. So this, to me, when Rachel pulled this together, I was like, wow, this is a lot of money on rent, and a lot of those hidden factors as well that is really kind of hard to wrap our hands around. But we will. But just moving forward as we think about this, I thought this was a nice place for a beginning.
Yeah, we'll probably keep this in front of the board too, in future discussions just to have it. So you bigger districts that have a lot of buildings, I mean, you look at this is like by itself, this is a huge school district. I realize, SASSA is not managing all these facilities necessarily besides this one in Southeast, but still, it's a lot of space spread all over creation.
And with space is spread all over creation, right, there's also an increase in staff costs, right? We need to have our administrators, we need to consider their travel time, or OTs and PTs that are going all over the place, several places a day. So there's just a lot of those costs that are just already assumed in here that are not on the rental costs, but they are there.
And I'll just add again, for maybe newer members haven't been privy as much to some of these discussions, we haven't really talked too much about facilities, we just know we need to address it. I want to make clear, Kim's talking about, efficiencies and things like that, but there's no preconceived notions. There's nothing that's even been, Kim's been here for, going on 3 months, but haven't even had a chance yet. Just having this in front of us, I think, is important. So when we do this, we can all have open minds and talk about what's good for the good for our students, for our member districts, and obviously for the cooperative. So just going to be a lot to kind of think through and plan for there, whatever model or whatever direction we go, but this will be a task, there's no doubt. So this is a good start to have in front of us, and we'll start talking about taking those next steps. Any questions or other comments? Rachel?
Just a clarifying question on the taxes for this building. How long have we been in this building?
This is, I think we have a 10-year contract, and it is up 2026. So we need to be
1 more year? 2 more years?
two more, with this year and next year.
October 31st.
That's it, October 30, thank you, Rachel, 26.
Do you
So
know how that was agreed, like how that got into the agreement?
I do not.
So-
Have we always been?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, we have not always been here. I know the district office used to be over at Southeast. And then when Southeast grew, I believe this is where they rented and they use this with the transition program. They used to have a transition program off campus, and they brought that back here. I will tell you, if we, in 2 years, I think I could speak for the staff here that we would be delighted to consider other options.
From this location.
Yes.
And that's been universal across for for some.
Yes.
In terms of the taxes, because my district is currently renting our facility, we're actually moving next week to our permanent home, so we don't have to do this anymore.
Looks nice, by the way.
Thank you. They either explicitly tell you you're paying the taxes or your lease is increased to cover it one way or another. So I think everyone at the table, whenever we rent a non-school district facility that's exempt, you're either directly paying the taxes or indirectly paying the taxes with the rent. I do think long-term, if we look at all of our districts and see if there's space, it would make sense to rent that from a school district because that extra cost isn't added in there either directly or indirectly.
And not to make more work for you, but whenever we get to the point of examining facilities, I see we have square footage for Southeast, we have square footage for this, but we don't have the general idea of how much square footage we're renting or leasing from our own partner district. So when we start looking at how much space does the program actually need, we'll probably have to start ballparking.
Yeah, Rachel and I talked about doing that. The leases don't necessarily outline that, other than
Right.
whether it's an
No, we just
office
have to work
or a
towards it.
classroom, right, right.
Just gives us an idea, that's a good point. Yep, get an idea of cost per square foot, and things like that too, and obviously
Yes.
programming is gonna drive facility needs too.
Kim, could you also on the classroom lease agreement, I see the number of classrooms there, but I cannot see the number of students being served. That might be a good number to have on there.
Yes.
So like, for
So
example.
we have 383 students. How many students is that set?
383.
So I'm just curious, of that 383, how many are being served in these lease agreements?
Sure.
for
If you look at the enrollment report, it goes through and highlights how many kids are in each room.
It does, but I want to see specifically how many students are being served via lease agreements or not lease
No, great
agreements.
point.
And because that might help in the facility decisions if you
Well,
know.
it ties right into Hank's point, we can,
Yes.
you know, they're gonna make, but have a column of square footage,
Yeah.
number of kids
Exactly.
served,
Yeah.
and maybe the program, because it also helps to know what that program, if it's Jane's Vision program, that's very different than some other programs.
Well, and I think historical trends too, right? Because if we
Yes.
are thinking 5 years from now, we anticipate an increase in enrollment in this particular program, that's going to make a difference.
The other question I would have about going down the rabbit hole here, but I know we have had, there's been some discussion over the last few years about program changes, consolidations, something. So how is that discussion going to happen, I guess, alongside this one? Or does that have to happen first before we can, I guess, how are we going to navigate that? Or are we not pursuing any other, are we just saying that these are the programs that we have to go forward, or is there still discussion of maybe some changes in consolidation?
I will say, when Lizzie and I have been talking, we believe that we can come up with a couple different options based on facilities. One would be if we were to look at consolidation of programs and whatnot, what would we need as a building for that? I think there's some conversations to be had with other folks about other types of consolidations, and then if we just kind of kept things as they are. There's benefits to having one site or two sites. There's also cons to that, and there's benefits to having multiple sites. So I think we would probably, as the facility committee works, we would have to come up with a couple of different scenarios, and either scenario, we would be able to service the students, but what is more digestible for the board and the cost along with that.
I just think it's something that would be facility dependent, or what, we don't know what facilities would be available.
Yes.
To try, so, problem solving around.
Yes.
All right. Any other comments for now? I think we got a couple really good suggestions there that'll help us, all of us wrapping our heads around kind of with the square footage, the number of students served, the programs, and kind of getting that all as much as we can on a document in the future. And then we'll take it from there. Obviously, again, this is why this is a really big topic, okay? If there's nothing else, we're gonna move on to the financial updates from Rachel.
This This is for the Medicaid annual cost settlement that SASN received in the amount of $980,000. SASN administration is recommending that we retain these funds for facility planning to deliver fund balance. Are there any questions about the annual cost settlement?
In other words, for now, we're storing those funds away to be determined, right? Yeah. Well, we're not gonna just spend it, just.
So when you say SASN share, I just want to make sure, all of our districts have received their individual shares,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Can we get more of an understanding on what is SASN share, right? Because if it's coming from all of the member districts, then I want to learn more about that before I just say, sure, let's roll it over all the SASN.
Yes.
Because our districts are now in charge of that, and that's added cost to us. And so, again, I just want to make sure I understand that, because I'm not sure I'm comfortable, although I know we need it in the fund balance, but if we're now administering this and that is district share, I may want to look at that a little bit more, ask the finance committee and take a look at that.
So I could share a little bit, and then Rachel hop in if I don't have it right.
Okay.
So we spent a lot of time on that. My understanding is the way things have been done in the past, at the end of the school year, any of the Medicaid money would be dispersed to all the districts, and SASN, it would be for students that, which one of our, like, where?
So all of the districts received, because SASN manages Embrace fees for service for every member district.
With your employees, thank you. With your employees, that's your Medicaid piece. So your employees that you hire, that's the piece of the reimbursement that goes back to the districts. SASN employees also generate Medicaid funds. So our OTs, PTs, nurses, they're hired by SASN. It is, and when this money had come in before, we would my understanding is that it would just be added to the SASN fund reserves. So Rachel and I had a lot of conversations, like, what do we want to do with this? Do we want to bring it to the finance committee? I'm the one who told her, no, like, what did we do in the past? In the past, at the end of the year, and we're still, this is the residual from the way that we used to budget. This was the money that was generated by SASN staff. We are more than willing to have those conversations to go down to the, and I know we're not asking for the penny, but to drill down into that would be, it's not impossible, we could do it, but it's our staff, our OTs. So if an OT generates $50,000, for example, they work, we have to take into consideration the minutes per student, the student where the student is, and so forth. So.
Right, and I'm not trying to be typical, I understand that, but when we say it's SASN staff, districts are getting billed for those services.
Yes, absolutely.
And so what I want to make sure member districts, and no one wants SASN's fund balances to be stronger than I do. What I just want to make sure of, and this is why I recommend sending it to finance committee, is that we don't have a situation where in the tuition, we're paying for that Medicaid service through that billing, and then SASN is not only collecting the tuition, but then collecting that money as well, right? It has to be one way or the other, and so that's what I'm interested in learning more about. I think this is all new to all of us, and so before we make blanket decisions that, yes, it should just all go into the fund balances, I think a better understanding of our tuition that we're paying for those individual students, and whether or not that we're getting double charged for that, so to speak. And I don't have that information right now to make an educated decision.
And we're also working off of fiscal year 22, right? So is that typical that we're 2+ years behind in receiving?
This is something new that they just started this year. So next year it'd be fiscal year 23, so it is 2 years behind. But this is like a third revenue stream. that we've implemented?
My concern is a lot of the Medicaid dollars are generated by free and reduced lunch students, and that a lot of them go to districts that are in need, and that those districts getting double charged, basically because you're paying the higher tuition, and what the cost offset would have been, you're not seeing some of that cost offset pieces. And that was one of the reasons of sending money back to the districts, and then knowing that we were paying a higher tuition charge, that you were getting, if you were in one of those districts, you were getting more of that money back to help make sure that you were getting the benefit of those programs.
How do you feel about the concept of just having this be a finance committee discussion, just so the finance committee has eyes on it? I think, Kevin, you just kind of looking for clarity and transparency on how it works.
I think it's
So, yeah,
a brand new process to all of
Yeah,
us. I
yeah.
think, to Brian's point about it being 2 years in arrears,
Yep.
just getting a better understanding of what we can expect as districts, what our individual reimbursements will be when we pay tuition for students that are being served by OTs and PTs.
Yes.
Is that built into the tuition? If so, then I might have a different view of how that SASAD money should be doled out. If it's not, and then SASAD keeps that share, that's a different, so I don't have all that information right now, and so that's why I'd like the finance committee to take a look at it. Again, I like where the thinking is that it should go into the fund balance, but what I don't want to have happen is that districts get double billed, so to speak, on that, where we're paying that increased cost up front and then not getting the reimbursement for it in the rear.
Yeah, Kevin, I don't have any problem doing that. Again, Rachel and I had several conversations
Yeah.
about this, and we definitely do that at finance. I just want folks to remember that our tuition, the way it was structured last year, the way we drill down may not be as readily available as it will be now moving forward, because there weren't a lot of definition as to how that previous tuition costs were developed. That's definitely something that, I don't want to repeat, but right, we could look into that in the finance committee and see what we can do and what that looks like, and what's available with that Medicaid money.
Right.
Yeah.
So Coming back FY '22 to FY '22, the budgeting process might be difficult, but the big thing is making sure it's clarified to Kevin's questions for now and going forward too, right?
Yes.
Right. And then it is $980,000. It's a chunk of money.
Yes.
It's great if it can stay there and we're all clear on it that way. Is that something that you think the finance committee could? Yes. All right, so noted. We'll put that on the finance committee agenda and report back maybe next month, in October, follow up. Tell them the money sits as it is. Rachel, anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions before we take a motion to go into closed session? I do want to point out for our audience members as well, when we come out of closed session, we won't ever plan to be in there any longer than we have to be for sure. We just have these two action items, potential MOU presented as on the agenda between the SSA and the SEA unions, and then also the destruction of minutes per policy and statute. So anything else before we do? If not, I'll take a motion to go into closed session at 3:08 p.m. Dr. Baldwin, your second.
Nobody wants to go.
Who gave the second? I'm sorry.
Dr. Barkowski with your 68. Okay, everybody, we are in open session, obviously, and we are now on to action items from closed session. Under item 12A, we have, Kim, you want to share approval of memorandum of understanding between SASAD and both the SSA and SEA unions to be included in their current contracts.
I think we are
That is
pulling that.
that is the item that's pulled. We just wanted to address, so no action taken there. 12B, approval of destruction of the January 25th, 2023, February 22nd, March 22nd, April 26th, 2023 closed session recordings as presented on the closed session minutes.
So moved, Winfield 34.
Second, Senator Gassick, you say.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Anything else? Are we good to the order? If not, we're moving on
So move until 34.
Second?
58 seconds.
7:58, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everybody.